Good morning. I'm in Portland. I am going home tonight, and I had a 10-day vacation planned to help lighten my heart a little bit, and after 5 days, my heart is lighter, and this is my casual hello. I've worked in the mental health field primarily with women and quite a bit on the side with men. I'm a master's of social worker. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor. These are my shiny credentials, just so you know. I have some experience. I'm a certified Daring Way facilitator because back in 2014, one of my clients helped me get to know Brene Brown, and I fell in love, and like I do with all the people that I have studied and I'm inspired by, I crush, and I was a non-traditional student, and when I first graduated, I was 42 years old with my master's degree. So I entered the field of social work, and my husband and I my husband's name was Gus, and he was a Zen Buddhist monk, and we were married for 28 years and had the best time. He died in 2018, and so we lived in Albuquerque because I couldn't find a job in Missoula, Montana, which is where my home base is, and I have a 20-acre retreat center. So when he was offered a head monk position to get ordination, it's called Tokado for those of you who know, and they invited him to come down there where they were going to open a new Zen center. He said, maybe you can find work down there. And I did. I found work at St. Martin's Hospitality Center, which was this huge homeless shelter with all kinds of services. And I had housing, and I was the dual diagnosis counselor. And so I didn't know anything about addiction at that point, because they don't teach us a lot of that in master's program. And so my fantastic, spiritually evolved administrator and clinical director, Cal, he educated me, and he said he thought most drug and alcohol substance issues and most mental health issues were trauma-based. And so they trained me right from the very beginning in EMDR, and all my work, all these years, couple decades, has always been trauma-focused in helping people get to the root causes of their suffering. And one of the wedding vows that Gus and I had for each other is born of this teaching that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And so our wedding vows were to reduce each other's suffering and help make our hopes and dreams come true for each other. So I've been dedicated to reducing suffering my whole career, and since he died, I have learned a way to reduce my own suffering in a way that I believe Gus provided for me. I mean, my mom died in 2020, at the beginning, and I believe that was about the time where I was suffering pretty good and I was having a hard time, and they helped me discover a way. Anyway, I'm not here to sell you on what works for me. What I'm invested in is I've had 3 lifelong goals that continue to this day and will continue to the end of my life. The first one is to keep all forms of intimacy at the top of my game to the end of my life. And there's at least 7+ types of intimacy, and I've named a few extras in my time, like professional intimacy, which is what I have with my clients. And so that's number 1. Number 2 is to cultivate a wicked sense of humor. So in my studies of intergenerational trauma, which is, the trauma didn't start with me, it didn't start with my parents, and it didn't start with my grandparents, it's intergenerationally passed down. My interest is in, along with the intergenerational traumas that most of us get, it's my opinion and my experience that we are also gifted with resiliencies and post-traumatic growth. And my whole area of interest is post-traumatic growth and resiliency, and learning about vulnerability and shame resilience, etc. So one of my resilient traits that I was handed intergenerationally was my dad had a wicked sense of humor. So did his sister. And they survived childhood trauma somewhat intact because of their wicked sense of humor. And so I have inherited that. So I'm terribly interested in helping people cultivate that particular resilient trait. And so hopefully I'll bring some humor to what I share. And then the last one is to develop a unique delivery system for therapy. And so far, this podcast is going to be the point of entry for me, where I'm going to speak out loud and be brave. And I know that I have something to share. I would love to leave a body of work behind that is of value. And I'm gonna turn 70 in August. And so while my mind is crystal clear, oh, I'm sorry, I have to circle back. I learned that term from Brene Brown, from her crew. I have to circle back. So all that being said, I got to watch, I'm going to circle back to my credentials. So you might be aware of the studies that they have done. They're called fMRIs. And they did fMRIs. They did research on monks, Buddhist monks like my husband, where they showed that after 30, 40 years of a breathing, sitting meditation, zazen, or any meditation, they know that the brain lights up all over the place. All right? And it's in that state that is very zen, right? And so the latest studies that have long been dormant and are now very active, and there's tons of interest, and I was one of those people at the front line wanting to become a psychedelic chaplain. Becoming is what I am currently learning and experimenting on myself. I have like 3 favorite words: experiment, practice, and cultivate. And then I have 3 values that are at the top of my list: courage, connection, and curiosity. So, fast forward into my curiosity about psychedelics and what it does for the brain. I have been on it's going on 8 months, a year-long commitment to microdosing with psilocybin. And then I went to Amsterdam in August of last year, my first trip abroad, to be do what's called a heroic dose or a macro dose of truffles, psilocybin truffles, with a guide. And the guide I met, who guided my trip, was April Rains. That's really her name. And she was such a beautiful person. And so then I learned there that I didn't want to be a guide for deep dives. I prefer the microdosing way of lighting up my own brain. So back to the studies that they did on monks compared to people who were dabbling in whatever capacity with psilocybin, the brain lights up in the same ways, because the middle part of the brain is called the default mode network, and that is where, I'm going to just say it the way I say it. I think of the default mode network as the one that says be afraid, be anxious, be depressed, be on guard, right? Be on guard. And what psilocybin does is it quiets that part of the brain just a little bit. On big doses, it quiets it quite a bit. And so with the quieting, I've seen yarn renditions of the fMRIs, which it'll show the brain before and after the dosing, and it starts to light up and create new neural pathways. And one of the things that I love from James Fadiman, if you want to look up a YouTube, he is one of the main founders and educators about and done research called citizen science, where he's collected data on people who are using psilocybin in the general public on their own. And the remarkable results of microdosing, he reports that it helps a person really care about themselves. And it's my experience that this is absolutely true, and I have benefited 6 ways to Sunday with this microdosing experiment I'm on. Because I have other areas of interest that I want to share with you, that I want to mention. And I'll just give you a little teaser. One of them is about keepers. And keepers are people in our lives we don't want to live without. Well, I'm going to try and use I statements absolutely as much as possible, because I have a pet peeve about you and we statements. So I course correct as much as I can possibly be aware of this, and I would like to say I kind of like unfuck yourself, but my sister thought that was too harsh. And if I'm going to make this available to people, I guess I'll just put maybe an explicit warning at the beginning, because I do like to swear for the fun of it. It's just fun to swear. I never swear at people. That just doesn't work for me. That's not where I live. I do swear, though. I also have an 82-year-old relative that I respect the heck out of, and so she doesn't love swearing. So we'll see. I'll hit it in the middle probably. So I hope you join me. I hope you subscribe. I hope this meets a need, because I'd like to leave something meaningful behind. All right. So I'm going to leave you with this, what I'd like to call my audience, which I call myself. Welcome, my fellow edgy travelers. Bye for now.